Hello there and welcome to another Visual Basic .NET programming tutorial. So in this session what we're going to look at is selection. So it's one of the key constructs of this programming language and most programming languages across the entire world. So what we're going to do first is create a new project. I'm in Visual Studio 2019 here and I'm going to select Visual Basic. So that's the language we're going to program in today. And if I scroll down, I'm looking for a Windows Form application .NET framework. Okay, so I'm going to call this selection. And I'm happy with where it's being saved in the right location. And we're happy with everything else. So once we've done that, we're going to go down to the bottom corner and click Create. And we wait for our project to build. And there we are. We've got our form here and currently it says form 1. I can check my form 1 design. It looks okay there, and I've got also on the drop down there I've got my code window. So there shouldn't be any code in there now apart from public class form 1, which is the name of my form, and end class. So inside there, just going to quickly change the text property of this form to be called selection. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to add in a couple of buttons into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just double click button there. There we go, one button. Fairly straightforward. And I'm going to require a few more of these for this program today. And what else I'm going to need is a text box as well to allow the user to enter information into the system. So there we are with the text box at the top. And all these things, they need names, obviously. So my first one here is my text box. So I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to go down to the properties of the text box. And I'm going to type in there txt age input. So that's the name of that text box now. And the first one here, the first button, is going to be called btn check age. Okay, so btn is short for button, check age is what it's going to do, so it's a good self-documenting identifier. And I'm also going to change here the text to say check age. Okay, once I've done that, if I double click the button, it will create the event for me, and here it is. So the event is created automatically. Now you can do this manually. You can select from here the objects on the form and also check the event as well, and it will create the event handler for you. However, nice and simple, we can just click the button and it creates the program for us, or creates the event handler, should I say. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. So I'll start off with dim, which is short for dimension, and I'm going to type in age there as an integer. Why do we need an integer? Because we're using whole numbers. People don't have ages that are 28.9, for example. And I'm going to expect the user to type something in my text box. So as soon as I type txt, the suggestion from the integrated development environment, which is Visual Studio, it tries to suggest what I'm looking for. So if I just press tab, it's going to accept that in there. And I need the text property. So in order to get access to the properties, I use the full stop and then a write text. After that now, I can check there. I can check using a simple selection statement. So selection is just the formal term for if. And it allows the program to branch in different directions and determine different conditions based if they're true or false or not. So if my age, for example, was greater than 37, and I'll put then, automatically the program indents the line. So the indent is the white space in between here. So that's the indentation. And it will also automatically put an end if there, if you've written your if statement correctly. Now, if my age is greater than 37, what I'll do is I'll say message box with speech marks in there, and I'll say too high. Okay, just test this. I'll make sure it works. And here we are, check age. So if I type in there 39, check the age, it says too high. Okay, if I type anything lower than that, 23. Nothing actually happens because if you look at the selection statement, it says if the age is greater than 37. So if that's true, enter the true part. So the true part is directly below the condition there. So this is the true part. And there is no false part at the minute. So in a selection statement, you have something else called else, funnily enough. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to handle the condition if the condition itself is actually false. So if I put in there message box too low, then what this will allow me to do is allow the user to work out if the value they've entered is too high or it's too low. So yeah, if I enter 29 in there and click the check age button, it's too low. I'll enter 33, still too low. I enter 40, it's too high. And I enter 37, check the age. It still says too low. Now, if you look at the logic of this, if the age is 37, it is greater than 37, then it's too high. But if it's not, then it's too low. There's no statement here that accounts for if the age is equal to 37. So in our standard if statement, we can have do something if it's true and do something if it's false. My if statement doesn't account for if it's exactly 37. So what I can do is I can add in a statement here that says else if. And this allows you to have more than one condition in your selection statement. So I can type in there, definitely not that, I can type in there else if my age is equal to 37, then message box, bingo, found the age I'm looking for. Okay, so let's test this out and make sure that it definitely hits this time. I'll put in a couple of values there. I'll enter the correct value and it says bingo. If I put in there 36, that's too low. If I put in there 38, that's too high. So now my selection statement allows for greater than 37, equal to 37, and if all else fails, it must be too low. So let's expand this program a little bit further. In my second button, if I name this driving test checker and give the button a name, double click the button, creates the event, BTN driving test check, underscore click is the event itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the user to enter their name and their age. So ages must be between the values of 17 and 70 in order to be valid. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare two variables. Now, if I declare them inside the private sub, then what that means is these variables are going to be local to the private sub procedure. And if we hit end sub, then the memory space that those variables take up will be relinquished at the end of the procedure. So I've declared my name variable as a string because people will have names longer than one character, I imagine. And my age is an integer. Now to get information from the user, I'm going to use an input box for this situation. And I'm going to ask them to enter their name. So an input box allows the user to see a box pop up on the screen and they can enter that information in there. And also I'll have age in there as well, which is an input box. And I'm going to ask them to use the name of the person, and so that ampersand there allows me to concatenate. So it will say the name of the person and then it will ask them to please enter your age. Okay. And you can see that in action. And there we go. If I click the button, enter my name, and then it says, John, please enter your age. Put in there an age, and then nothing else happens because I've not told the program to do anything yet. Now, what I can do next is I can then use a selection statement to work out whether my age is greater than or equal to 17, and I use the Boolean operator AND, which also allows me to put in a second term in there, second condition that's less than or equal to 70. Okay. Now what that AND does is it means that the condition on the left has to be determined and come to the conclusion of true, and so does the right hand side as well, because in an AND logic gate both conditions have to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. If any one of these sides fail, then the if statement will fail altogether. So in this case I'll put message box in there, and then I'll put valid conditions entered. You may do your test. Now that's great. If the person doesn't pass that condition there, I can say message box, sorry, you cannot do your test. Now that's fine. So really simple. That allows me to work out the range between 17 and 70, including both 17 and 70 because I use the equal operator as well, the equals. So I can change this for or if I wanted to. I could write or in there, and that would allow me to say if you were greater than or equal to 17 or your age was less than or equal to 70. But obviously the logic there doesn't work, but you can use different Boolean operators in there. The third operator that we need to be aware of as well is the not operator. So not will actually flip the true to false, and if it's false, it will flip it to true. So there's a few different situations where you'd use that. And that's really everything that we need to go into with selection statements. The only additional thing in there would be a nested selection statement. So what nested selection statements mean is an if inside an if. So let's add something into this program that allows us to use a selection statement. And if you think about driving tests, you need to have already completed your theory test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, and I'll do that at the top to keep everything nice and neat. I'll say dim theory test complete as a string. I'll allow them to enter some text in there, and I'll say theory test complete equals input box from the user again, and allow them to enter. So the question will be, have you passed your theory test? And the person will enter yes or no, hopefully. Now, without doing validation on this, we're just going to have to take their word for it. And I can say in there then, if your age is greater than or equal to 17 and your age is less than or equal to 70, then I can say inside there, if that's true, then we need to do another check, don't we? We need to say if theory test complete equals yes, then what we need to do is we need to allow them to sit their test. So I can take this information out of there, okay, and I can put that in there. Now, if they fail this condition, they fail it, I can actually put something in there and say, you must complete the theory test first. Okay, and then it will fail and drop out after that situation. Okay, so if you look at the indentation here, a nested selection statement is just an if inside an if. And we can keep going. There's no limit to how many if statements you need or you're allowed inside your conditions. So selection statements are incredibly useful. You just need to remember that when you compare an if statement, you will have true or false based on the condition, and you can use Boolean operators inside the line as well. And there's nothing to stop you doing an else if inside here like we did before and using the Boolean operators there as well. And that's everything in this quick tutorial on selection.